Good afternoon. The electronic revolution has enhanced livelihoods, propelled human development, and even allowed for the most expansive forms of democracy we've ever seen. And yet, this progress has had considerable cost. Two particular characteristics of the electronic revolution pose serious sustainability concerns. The first, planned obsolescence, the ever-shrinking life cycle of most technologies. And secondly, pervasive computing, the industrial obsession to computerize almost every imaginable consumer good. These production and consumer trends have basically led to the massive, uncontrolled generation of electronic waste. Now, people generally understand e-waste to be an environmental issue. We know not to dispose of e-waste into the environment where it can leach toxins, but instead that e-waste need to be segregated, collected separately so that they can be further processed in an environmentally sound manner in order to salvage the precious metals that are contained in e-waste and to safely dispose of the toxins. Now, broadening our vision to the global scale, we see that e-waste are in fact an environmental justice issue as well. Despite international, regional, and many national laws prohibiting e-waste exports into developing countries, the global e-waste trade thrives and heads towards India, Ghana, Brazil, China. This international trade is happening virtually unregulated because it takes place through world seaports, where effective law enforcement is virtually impossible, given the number of containers that pass through on a daily basis. Furthermore, e-wastes are mixed in with legal commodities, making inspection a highly difficult task. Now, what has happened is this global e-waste trade has fed into a very pollutive, massive global e-waste chain, where the most directly affected are the workers and communities and children who are directly or peripherally involved in e-waste smelting. Also, international consumers of products made out of e-waste. International consumers of food grown in regions close to e-waste clusters. You may be wondering what has been the global industry response. While governments and industry are coming together, there's a trend towards life cycle thinking, extended producer responsibility legislation. We're seeing various groupings of industry and government at national, regional, international levels coming together to discuss various categories of products in order to share and negotiate the responsibilities. My research looks at who's sitting at these negotiation tables and whether all relevant interests are being represented, notably the informal e-waste sector, the massive hundreds of thousands of people scattered over the world that have been an invisible part of this global e-waste chain, not recognized as workers, but instead as waste scavengers, people who have made a social claim to e-waste. So I'm looking at how these new legal regimes are going to affect their social claims, their livelihoods that depend on consumer waste streams. In essence, the question is, how does the global informal e-waste workforce fit into new legal visions of sustainability? Thank you.
And I guess it's more of a trade and a moral question, actually. When you look at how we justify providing equipment, refurbished electronic equipment to people that deserve it, some of the countries you mentioned, they are quite representative, Ghana, India, and I think even where I come from, Kenya. So first, it's affordable because it's refurbished. It was used before, now it's usable again. And two, I can afford to use it. But at the end of it all, after a short period, I dump it. So how do we justify that we need to provide resources to these people and at the same time avoid what we call dumping it in other places? Yeah. I don't know whether you're looking at that aspect.
No, of course. There's some interesting strategies that have been deployed. For example, Egypt doesn't accept reused equipment that is older than 5 years. Kenya, your country, I think, puts on a 25% excise duty on used computers. Ghana, because they have an ICT for development plan that they want as much coming in as possible, they have 0% duties. So countries, it's very, very much up to legislators to set the import-export duties and to see that those are in fact being enforced. The other thing is that developing countries have to enhance their capacity to handle their own domestic e-wastes. So we're seeing some interesting relations being set up. For example, HP has set up a recycling facility in South Africa, and there's some technologies technology transfer is taking place, but it's very much about international cooperation. And for those big players such as HP, Apple, Dell, in order for them to actually get engaged and help build recycling capacity in the African continent and Asia as well.